What's up, everybody? We
Yo,
have
yo.
got Dan in two
Yo,
places right now. Drew, I'm sorry, you're being double teamed right now. All right, I'm gonna fix this. But hey, what's up, everybody? My name is John Garcia with KNOTFest. We are here to preview the Chaos and Carnage Tour happening around the country starting next Friday. And let's go and introduce all of these people over here. And Drew, I will get you on here. Zoom has just been fucking up all over the place. But let's start over to my left. He is the guitarist, co-vocalist, and founding member of death metal legends Dying Fetus. We have Mr. John Gallagher. How you doing today, John?
hey, what's up? Doing well. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here. And
Yeah.
let's see. Coming up next, we have he's the vocalist of Colorado Springs modern deathcore Brutalizers. We've got Dan Tucker of Crown Magnetar. How you doing, dude?
Good, good. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. And let's go. I'm gonna we're gonna have to do this live real quick. But while I am fixing a guitarist, and he plays for deathcore veterans Suicide Silence, Mr. Mark Heylmun. How you doing today, dude?
Fan fucking tastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing just
Stressing because
fine,
you can't figure that shit out or what?
dude. It's driving me insane. So let's go back to this main scene and see. Hey, everybody is working just fine. Live technical difficulties. So we are here today to preview the Chaos and Carnage Tour, which is going to be rampaging around the U.S. starting next Friday, April 7th in Fort Worth, Texas, and going all the way through April 30th at the House of Blues in Anaheim, California. And I figure that we have a lot of experience, a lot of death metal legends, a lot of up and coming death metal bands as well. I wanted to start on equal footing and just go around the circle and say, what was it? What was your first introduction to heavy music and why did it grab you so much? And we will start with you, Mr. Gallagher.
Oh shit, man. Basically, for me, it was just like, and this is like the late '70s. You know, I was born in '72, so we're going back. And I would just go in my uncle's bedroom, and he had a bunch of fucking vinyls, miscellaneous shit. So I guess I heard Black Sabbath. What do you have? What was that fucking? I don't know, War Pigs. We sold our souls for the rock and roll. That fucking album. But
Yeah.
so you know, I had like a lot of the classics and stuff like that, and that was probably my first exposure to like kind of distorted guitar and heavy kind of music and stuff. And also, people don't like him now. You know, it's Ted Nugent. You know, like he's kind of a goofball. You know what I mean? But I don't like what he stands for and all. But I liked his music back in the day. Cat Scratch Fever was like one of the first riffs I learned and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it goes back, you know. And then there was like Nazareth and shit like that. But you know, that older '70s rock was, I guess, my first, you know,
And
chance to hear this kind of stuff.
yeah, and how did that lead you into obviously the more extreme music that eventually you started applying your trade with?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like most guys my age have the same kind of story, you know, right? It's always like that, you know, like the Black Sabbath. Then it was the Venoms and the Celtic Frost
Mm.
and of course the early Slayer. When I first heard Metallica, I was blown away. But it's the same common story that we all kind of have, you know. Just kind of started off with the mellow stuff, and the heavier stuff started coming out, and I was listening to it and enjoying it, and like figuring out guitar, and I was like, what can I do with this, you know? Like when I first started hearing Metallica do the crunch riffs, like, you know, and Seek and Destroy, and I started learning the down picking, and I was like, okay, this is where it's at. This is fun. This is cool. But I don't have like a any kind of unique story really about how I got into metal. It's like kind of I think everyone's the same path.
Yeah, just finding one of those. Like for me, it was Maiden. First time I heard Number of the Beast, that was like
Right.
that went down the rabbit hole, right? And then you Master of Puppets and Rain and Blood, all those other ones. So let's go counterclockwise, I guess. And Drew, since we had Dan taking up your screen for a little bit, we'll go to you, my friend. What was your first introduction to heavy music, and what about it grabbed you?
I think my first introduction to heavy music was like when I was really young, like Korn and Slipknot, like bands like that.
Yeah.
But when I was in like 7th or 8th grade, I saw a Cannibal Corpse music video on YouTube, and it just like blew me away. It was like 2006. I was like 11 or 12, but it just like it slowly just like was a snowball effect of a billion other different bands, but like from like obviously Dying Fetus and Cannibal Corpse and like Suffocation and all those bands just really like drew me into just the heavier music, like the crazy guitar tones and like down-tuned guitars, just so chunky and gnarly sounding, and obviously the drums like are super important to me as well. I played drums at first, but playing guitar is much cheaper and a lot less things to haul around, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly. What about you, Dan?
I actually grew up in like the middle of Maine, so like there was no music scene or anything around there, so I didn't really get to experience like that part of things as a kid. But like I guess when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, I found like Hybrid Theory and Meteora, like Linkin Park, and then Slipknot. Yeah, and then then I just kind of progressed from there. I was like, wow, there's music where there's just screaming the whole time. Like, let me find more of this. Then I got into I don't know, like Carnifex, Dead in My Arms, The Cleansing. I won't fangirl too hard, Mark. So all kinds of stuff like that. Case Strain, but yeah, it just kind of progressed. And then like I just I'd never been in a band when I was a kid, and then I just decided I moved out to Denver like a little over 10 years ago, and that's kind of when everything started. And I actually met Nick, our guitar player, on Craigslist, so it's kind of a funny story. But
love it.
Yeah, pretty much the same, man. I just found like the hard rock type of shit, Slipknot, Linkin Park, and then I just started looking for blast beats, basically.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, like 20 years ago, you would hear Chester Bennington just screaming on the radio, just on like rock radio and shit like that. That was one of my first, I think the Slipknot self-titled was the first time that I heard like that type of vocals before, right?
Yeah.
But then, just so like, it's crazy to Drew and Dan to hear, kind of like a similar experience, right? From, 20 years ago, hearing those bands. What about you, Mark? I feel like you're kind of a little bit of a bridge between Drew and Dan and John right now, as far as when your bands are coming up and like in the state of your career that you guys are in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so I was born in 87, but I had a similar kind of thing as John. Like initially, my dad played guitar. He was into all kinds of different stuff. He was more of a jazz guy, but he was a guitar player. So he knew sick guitar players. So I think I probably heard like Yngwie Malmsteen and like, stuff like that's not really heavy music, but that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I was like 4, like super young, I was listening to Steve Vai like in the car with my dad. But what got me listening to like what was just pummeling and cool was Sabbath and AC/DC. Those were like the two that I was just like, fuck, I want to. Truthfully, what made me want to play music, and I don't say this very often, was 2nd grade. I stole Green Day Dookie from my sister, and I listened to it before school, and I had it in the CD player in the garage, and I was just listening to this shit, and I was like, whatever's happening right now, like this energy, I was like, I want to be a part of whatever that is. And it's weird that it was, but that's what it was. But Sabbath, AC/DC, Metallica, Pantera, those like that kind of stuff was what I first discovered and chose to listen to on my own. And then I made a friend that was a little bit older than me when I was like 14. Rest in peace, Daniel Leon, one of my best friends. He's actually the dude that told me that Suicide Silence was having tryouts and all this. He's the reason. He's like a linchpin and a lot of shit. And one day I was hanging out with him, and he showed me Dying Fetus, Cryptopsy, Skinless, Decapitated, probably some other stuff, but like all in one day. He's just showed me super sick death metal. And prior to that, I kind of thought like too much, like crazy death metal vocals was too much. I didn't really like it that much. I hadn't been shown the right music yet. And dude, once I heard all of that, I was like, this is insane. And then like I found out about Cattle Decapitation. They were from San Diego. I live in Temecula. They were like kind of a local band at that time. And I got into Cattle and Suffo and just started going to shows. And it was all kind of at the right time because like the metalcore thing was cracking in the early 2000s in Southern California. And I wasn't really about it. I wasn't really like super down with all that kind of stuff. It was cool, but it was just like not for me. But then when I, goddamn, when I heard Decapitated and Fetus, like this was the death metal I needed to hear, like super hooks and just like sick guitar. And yeah, I mean, it just spiraled from there, and it's been, nothing but brutal since then.
Yeah, that's a hell of a day, right? That's just like, oh, I'm gonna walk out of my friend's house with my brain in a soup pan, basically, after listening to all those bands.
Dude, in an S10 at the top of the hill we called the chill spot, just smoking weed and drinking beers and just listening to sick metal. It was badass.
Man.
So sick.
So Mark, you actually touched on something I was going to ask, but I'm going to modify the question a little bit because you mentioned, right, like obviously death metal, deathcore, even some metalcore. These are all, genres that have a little bit of a higher barrier of entry than like, your Black Sabbath or your AC/DC or anything like that, right? What do you think would be your essential album to get someone to be like, here is your introduction to extreme music. This is what will open your mind and open your door. Like, what would you say, Mark? And we'll kind of go back around in the opposite order after this.
That's tough, but I mean, one of my favorite albums of all time that's extreme that I think for some reason is kind of acceptable to like, what does Josta call them? Like bitch ears. Like, even if you have bitch ears and you don't really like heavy stuff, like Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia, Demu, is just like a really, really well composed. It's got super brutal kind of spots, but then it's also got like kind of easy to listen to, like Puritania style songs.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of what I just go for, like right off the bat without thinking too hard about it. That's one of my favorite albums of all time.
It's an amazing album. Dan, what about you, my friend?
Oh man. Also a super hard question.
Oh yeah.
The first two that come to mind though, just because I would just have them jump right in. Like I would show them probably like The God Delusion by Night in Texas or Human Hive by Boris the Blade. Just super fast, aggressive deathcore. That's kind of my thing. So.
Yeah, it's like we're not warming you up at all. We're just going straight in for this shit.
Yes, yeah, can't hold back at all with that.
Fuck yeah, Drew. What do you think? Are you easing people in, or are you just going full bore?
I would probably just go full on into it. Like anything from the Eternal Suffering discography, and probably Scattered Remnants. Anything from their discography as well, because both of those bands are like, you get heaviness just for the sake of being heavy. There's slams, there's blasts, there's insane vocals, there's easier to listen to parts that can like grooves and catchier things to get into it. But yeah, those were the first two that came to mind. I was like, I could be easy and say like, I don't know, Gojira or something, or Meshuggah, but I'll just go into it.
Yeah, no, you want people to have that, you want them to have the heavy, and here you go, like, get into it.
Totally.
John, last but not least, what do you think, my friend?
I'm sorry, what's the question again?
The question is, what do you think? What is your essential album to get people who aren't accustomed to heavy music into heavy music?
Man, damn. Whew. I don't even know, bro. Something like Rage Against the Machine or something, maybe. I don't know. Fucking something light like that. But that's not really heavy music, I guess. I don't know.
Shit's pretty heavy though.
Yeah.
It is heavy.
I mean, yeah. I don't know, dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no right answer, right? And it's like I just sprung that on you guys and everything like that. But I did want to transition the conversation just a little bit because it's interesting. I learned when we were in the green room getting everything set up that y'all, though you're about to be very intimately familiar with each other over the next month or so, y'all haven't met in person yet before, and you're all getting used to everybody. So I would love to hear from both John and Mark, as well as Drew and Dan, from a different perspective, as far as like y'all got into playing death metal for a reason, and it is a labor of love, right? You didn't get in it to like make money or be famous or do that, right? You're doing it just to play the music that you love. And I was curious if you're able to actually explain just how much of a labor of love that being a death metal musician is. And John, we can start with you, my friend.
Oh yeah, you have to be into it, man, because it's the boredom of the road. I feel like is the worst part of all this stuff. You know, when you're sitting around, just trying to bide your time and stuff like and you're like, man, this is fucking boring. I got to get on a flight. Your fucking ass is fucking hurting. You're just like back is hurting. Those are the times when you say, God damn, You have to love it to go endure all the pain that's involved, like renting a bandwagon and bouncing down the fucking highway, and it's not easy all the time.
Yeah.
So you got to be into it. Got to love it. It's got to be in your blood. Or you're just going to get out of it and find like an easier, like more 9-to-5 job. That's what happens. And there's not a lot of money, so. And then you make some money, and there's always like a club trying to tax you. There's the fucking IRS. There's there's always somebody taking out of your pocket. So you got to be into it, man, or you lose interest really quickly with this. I feel like
Yeah. And I'll kind of ask this as well with everybody else, but like, what keeps you motivated to keep going, John?
Well. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is money. Everyone has to pay bills. It's like, you get to a point where, okay, now I can't, I'm 50 years old. Like, I can't really go back and like become like an electrician helper and build my way up into a salary. So there does come a point where it is about money. Of course, it's not big money, but you have to sustain your livelihood and stuff. So that, it's the enjoyment, of course. I love my job, but also, you got to make it in this world doing something, right?
Yeah. So. And just like with every job, right, it comes with its pains in the asses and it's like its flaws and all that other stuff. But I feel like,
right,
for musicians, some of the times they're like, if you're not chained behind a desk 24 hours a day or whatever it is, there are a lot of advantages too.
That's the pro. You can't cry too much and whine about it. You don't have to like wear a suit or dress up and act a certain way. You can kind of fuck off, and so you got to enjoy that. You got to, appreciate all those kind of things about it, and a lot of people are jealous of me. Like my girlfriend, she's at work now. She's like, you fucking lucky ass, you don't have to go every day and just like, deal with the grind so much. So we're blessed as musicians to do this, I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm jaded or anything, or it's a blessing. I'm happy to be here, but at some point it becomes a job, you lose like that, I don't know, that happiness, that joy. So at some point of it, it just becomes like, okay, I got to write an album, I got to do this, I got to get a rehearsal, becomes regimented,
Comes
something,
the grind.
Yeah.
Grind.
Especially with, I mean, John, you've been doing this for 30 odd years at this point, right? So Drew and Dan,
right.
I'm gonna get your opinion in just a second, but because of that, I wanted to like talk with Mark, which, you guys have been going for, I mean, you've been in Suicide Silence for almost 20 years now at this point, right? If you can even like fucking believe it at this point. So like same idea, like how is it a labor of love for you, and what motivates you to keep going, dude?
I mean, just like John said too, like it sucks because the touring beats you up.
Mhm.
Like, especially if you're headbanging and doing all that shit. Like, my neck is fucked. Like, I just went to the chiropractor
Right.
literally last week because I threw my back out loading fucking insulation into my car in the Home Depot parking lot.
Heavy
Like the
metal, dude.
stupidest shit.
Heavy metal.
But but I mean, like as far as it being a labor of love, like I feel like I've I kind of need to write riffs. Like I can't like not do that. So the fact that I can do that and uh you get what you put in, and you can see that, but it also can kind of go both ways. You can put a lot in and then like the record doesn't do good, or like the tour didn't do well, or whatever. You can put work in and like not actually see results, which is why it's got to be a labor of love. Like you got to still just do it. And I mean, I just don't think that I don't think there's anything else out there that I would want to do, even if I had to do this and all it did was, well, that's all it pretty much does is pay for my food and my bills. And even then I still got debt, it's like,
Yeah.
so, I just wouldn't want to be doing anything else. That's the truth. Like playing guitar and going and playing places and just doing what I've pretty much wanted to do forever. Like I used to want to go to shows and like throw my demo at somebody, maybe they're gonna listen to it, and now like people come and show me their demos and they're doing it's like this the other way around. I'm like, okay, so it comes full circle. And yeah, I'm not even gonna deny it. I'm jaded as all fuck, dude. Like, I'll go on I'll go like, oh, you're going on tour in Europe for fucking 6 weeks, dude. That's so sick. Like, hell no, it isn't, dude. Like, that's a long fucking tour. Like, and it's fucking winter and it's cold, dude. Like, I don't want to do that. But
Right.
but yeah, dude. But it's worth it for the stage. Like when you get on stage and be able to play, and you know, it's insane that people, it's insane the what Suicide Silence and the music we've done, like the little dent it's made. And when you're on stage and you're playing a song and it's like, dude, we're gonna play this song, a bunch of people, they love this shit, like I love this shit, this is sick. So yeah, I mean, I I like to play, live, and I love to write music. Like finishing a song and like coming up with new ideas, like that never gets old. Like that's what I'm all about. I love writing sick tunes.
Fuck yeah. I think that's a great answer. And I love that you guys are, being honest. Even if you're like, John saying he's not jaded, Mark saying that he is jaded. Like, fuck it, this is honesty hour. Let's go. Drew, Dan, I want to get your opinions on this because obviously you two are in bands that are, Drew, your band has 2 albums out right now. Dan, you have a bunch of EPs, and just 1 album. So you're just at the start of this journey with you guys are going. And of course, you've heard the horror stories, you heard the gripes about tour, exactly what you're getting into. So like, with that being said, like, what about this is like, can you explain why this is something that you want to do and what keeps you motivated to push through?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up in like such a tiny little town in Maine, and I like lucked out so hard by like meeting my bandmates and shit. Like I try never to take it for granted, and kind of going back to like what Mark and John said about, yeah, it can be rough sometimes when you're in a gas station at 3 a.m. in Kansas and it's freezing out and you're just trying to sleep a little bit. Yeah, it can be a little rough, but I try to never take it for granted. I know I got super lucky, like ending up in the band, like coming from where I came from, and like honestly, like music has helped me like so much with like my mental health, and I want to like try to give that back to other people too.
Yeah.
And I just have so much fun doing it. And at this point, I've like, not compared to John or Mark, but I've spent the last several years now just like putting everything I have into the band, and I couldn't imagine not stopping doing that or anything like that. So I just have so much fun. I'm so super lucky that my bandmates are all on the same page and we're all about it. So yeah, I mean, I just love it. I love music. I love heavy music. I love the aggression, the energy on stage when everyone's going crazy and you're just vibing up there with your boys. And
Yeah.
you're on tour with other sick bands, other dudes who are doing the same thing that you're doing and same thing that you've been trying to do. It's just a cool, it's it's like the coolest thing I could ever imagine doing. So, yeah, I know I just got super lucky, and I just love it. It's just so fun.
Yeah, and I love that you said that music has helped you, and now you kind of want to give back in whatever way you can. Mark, I've heard you say similar things in interviews before, as far as like getting someone to want to play a riff or write a song is like one of the biggest things and like one of the biggest compliments you can have as
Huge.
far as doing that.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. And the mental health thing too. Man, if I didn't have guitar and be able to like just go away or wherever that is, go in there and like get away and like play guitar, like, yeah, it's amazing for mental health. And yeah, anytime, I'm not jaded to the fact that people come up and say, I was depressed for this long or whatever, and your music helped me, or this happened to me and you guys pulled me out of that. Like, dude, I can feel that to the core, because music's fucking helped me a shit ton.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, dude, it's so weird that we're all in bands and we all like, maybe you own a van and a trailer and you like load that shit up and go on tour, or like we rent a fucking bandwagon and go drive around and play shows. Like, I remember a long time ago we were playing, it's probably like probably 2005 or something. We were playing with Animosity, and I remember it still sticks in my head. Leo from Animosity going, "Isn't it fucking weird? Like we all have vans and just drive around and play shows." And I still think that is honestly, yeah, it is kind of weird. Like that's great.
It's wild. It is.
Yeah.
Like truckers.
Yeah.
Totally. Like
Do-
we're
do
literally carnies.
Yeah,
Do you
like rock
piss?
and roll truckers.
Yeah.
And you got to have a piss jug, right, in your van, right? Who uses a piss jug in the van? I must ask that.
Gatorade
Dude,
bottle.
Gatorade bottles are the best.
Yeah.
That's the best
Yeah.
ones, the big ones. About this one and that big around.
You're right. Yeah.
Our drummer
some guys-
Byron, his
Go ahead.
Sean.
nickname in our band chat is
Yeah.
Piss Bottle Boulevard.
Said Piss Bottle Boulevard.
Yeah, because he just has 10 water bottles full of piss in the back there. I gotta
I love that.
tell him to get him the fuck out of the
Yeah.
van. Sorry, Byron.
We used to call it the trash bay. We would have just like where the van door is and like everything's right there. Just like throw it in the fucking trash bay, and just like full of
Oh
shit.
yeah. Yeah.
Good to
Like
know we're not
some guys don't want to use the piss jug. In my experience, they get grossed out by it. I'm like, dude, you want to hold it? You don't. What do you? He's like, no. Then you get all like, keep that thing away from me. And I'm like, it's only, it's contained, man. I don't know. So we always have a lot. Well, we don't ride in the van much anymore, but when we did, it was kind of funny how certain people would use them and others would.
Totally.
Look, you got to do what you got to do, especially on a long ride.
I know, man. I feel it.
Before we transition to the next topic, Drew, I want to give you a chance to answer this question. Although I'll modify it just a little bit, right? You knew the hurdles going in, right? I've seen you play it, the tiny sweaty venues where it's hotter inside the venue than it is outside. Like what was your impetus for wanting to be a dude in a van driving around with a piss bottle in the back to like play death metal to the masses?
It's all for the piss bottles.
Fuck yeah.
No, it's
Yes.
I think growing up and going to see bands, like I live in Toledo, Ohio, and it's a very like small city, and like bands used to play here all the time when I was like 11 to like 16, and just seeing like Black Dahlia and Fetus, and like there's a band from here called Premonitions of War, and
Hell
like
yeah.
just like a hell yeah, like just like a mix of bands, and like just seeing that and knowing like I want to play guitar, and like seeing people go crazy and enjoy music and like mosh and just party and have fun, and like the band's writing music they love and it's heavy as hell, like just like always made me like inspired and driven to do that.
Yeah.
And then when I was starting to play shows, like having that like feeling of just like performing live is like performing your songs that you write with your friends live is such a cool, like interesting experience. And then like the others said, being able to like at a point now where you tour and play shows with like bands you've looked up to forever, and like being able to be like personable with them, and it's a really cool experience that like just keeps you inspired, keeps you like amped up to keep playing and touring and writing, and you know, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I love playing in the bands with like the people I play in bands with. That's like the camaraderie of the band members is like, can't really explain that, you know?
Yeah, and you can see that on stage and like in videos and everything like that as well. So I wanted to open this up to whoever would like to grab this question first, and it's how do you, because obviously all of you are serious musicians, very accomplished musicians, and you take your craft very, very seriously, but without like obviously like Drew, your band, you guys don't take yourselves that seriously at all, given like the subject matter and all that shit. How do you take the music and your craft seriously and balance that without taking yourselves too seriously?
I don't think I take it very serious at all. I think that and I don't think there's a right or a wrong way about any of it.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, my dad was a guitar player and he like studied jazz and he took it super serious. And he was my first guitar teacher, music teacher, and he was the one that told me like, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take music too seriously. Like, and I don't know why it stuck so much with me, but as I got older, like I kind of felt it, or not older, as I kind of was more in a scene and being more involved in like an industry, I kind of could tell who took themselves too seriously. And it started to become more of like an ethos of mine where it's like, I don't know, I kind of like wear the like music and like what all this is kind of like a loose coat, you know, like it's there, but like I'm still getting a breeze under there and it's keeping me cool but warm at the same time. Like I don't want to be too serious about it. I still want it to be fun. And if I'm too serious, then I don't know, some fun goes away. And I have taken it too seriously before, so I kind of know both sides of it.
Yeah. Let me go to Dan and then I'm going to go to John afterwards because Dan, like your especially like when you read the lyrics for like your music and the music that you have, like very, you know, storytelling, right? You see a lot of it. You see a lot of imagery in there and a lot of different thoughts and feelings and everything like that. So what about you? Like, how do you balance taking the music and your lyrics very seriously while not trying to fall into exactly what Mark was talking about and like get buried under all of that?
Yeah. I mean, like, I want to give sick albums to people, so like obviously put the effort in there. But I mean, like I'm a dork. All my bandmates were just dorks. We just like to have fun. So like we almost just can't take it overly seriously, which is, which is nice. And I just, we're just there to have fun and like connect with people. So I don't think we've ever had an issue, me or anyone else in my band with like taking it too seriously. Obviously, like Mark said, like sometimes you get a little bit that way and you can start like feeling that a little bit and it takes away some like the charm of everything. But yeah, I mean, I just try to have fun and like, not overthink things and just try to put the best music I can out, and that's pretty much it.
Hell yeah. John, what about you?
Well, we've done things in the past. We've done like cock rock songs. Like we have 2 cock rock songs. One called Dumpster Love. The other one is like North Forest Trolls of Satan. So, and we've done reenactments of like a Grim Reaper, kind of old Grim Reaper song. This is all on Grotesque Impalement, which was released in 2000. So yeah, we have stuff like Kill Your Mother, Rape Your Dog. Like,
yeah,
I knew back then in the 90s to not take yourself too seriously with this, and that's a winning formula.
Sure.
That's why we did cock rock songs and stuff like this, because but how seriously can you take yourself when you're barking like a dog for a living? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I realized with all this, this is fun. I had jobs back in the 90s, and my playtime was the band, and then the playtime and then the band started growing, so I was like, fuck the job and all that. But so we've let people know, we have a new song coming out that's pretty humorous as well. I can't mention it, but the title. But yeah, man, we've actually done songs and stuff to show people that we kind of don't give a fuck, you know.
Yeah.
We have a song called "Dead Whores Love to Fuck," you know, like that's one thing I like about some death metal bands. They get too scientific and all this and really technical. And I think, you know, I've seen this kind of this progression, you know, like it was, bands like Hate Eternal and really technical fast bands came out in the early 2000s, and now it's tapered off into like Sugabogg or something. You know, it's a little more, I don't know, just this chilled out, not again taking yourself too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's not thesaurus death metal.
No
thesaurus required.
Right. Like Necrophagist, which I love Necrophagist, but a lot of that style is kind of fizzled out maybe a little bit. I don't know. I know there's bands that are still doing it, but it seems like the trend is to be more like old school and the party element, you know, is intact, you know, and stuff. And but for us, it's always been important to have fun with this, you know. That's number one goal, because when it's not fun anymore, then it's like time to find something else with this, you know, do something else in life, I feel like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And why I wanted your perspective on it is because I feel like, you know, you said that you have plenty of different songs that are kind of just like poking fun, or like, you know, I mean, fuck, you guys' name is Dying Fetus, right? That's like from the jump, people know exactly what to expect. But also, you know, you do tackle a lot of like, you know, socio-political issues and things like that in your music as well, which, you know, if someone listens to one Dying Fetus song, you know, the song where you have the sample track in it, was the woman who's like, nah, like I've got the baby and fuck the baby, you know, like that type of shit, right?
I love to do drugs and I love to smoke.
I wrote that sample, you know, because I was looking for a sample. I was like, what's the most fucked up, most ignorant thing someone could say? And I was looking around on YouTube and couldn't quite find it. So I was like, oh, let's write something and then have somebody, you know, record it, and we used it. So
I love that.
That's our whole thing, you know.
And Drew, right? I mean, I feel like you have a very good perspective on this, because the way that you know, I feel like you could very easily get someone into Sanguisugabogg by saying like, hey, here's a pee caca death metal band, go. You know what I mean? Like, your guys, none of your songs are like overly like serious or whatever. Like that's the bit. Like what was the feeling with that, and like how are you, you know, working towards that, you know?
I think it's like everyone else said, like, we're here to have fun, and like we're all individually like just a bunch of doofuses, really. Like, we just love to like make each other laugh, and like if that's our personality, we should put it through our music as well. Yeah. Like we want to, I guess, in the sense of taking yourself seriously, like we want to like play good and like write cool sounding things, but like, I mean, our merch designs are always like funny, and like song titles like could be like slightly serious, but there's humor within all of it, because it's all just meant to have fun and just play fun songs, you know, like everything. Devin, our vocalist, made like really funny memes every single day, like 2 weeks before we were putting the record out, just because it's like just to chuckle. Like just like John Mayer and Dave Chappelle, like their skit put like our song over it, and it's just silly little things like that, just to, I don't know, to keep it funny, you know, because taking yourself too seriously is an eyesore. And it like doesn't like look good, or like even, I'm sure it doesn't really feel that great either, you know?
Oh man. All right. We're going to transition to, I've got a couple more questions before we wrap this up. And it looks like we're getting love from Slay Squad in the chat as well. Everybody, we are talking about the Chaos and Carnage Tour that's going to be rolling through North America next week for the month of April. It features Dying Fetus, Suicide Silence, Board of Osiris, Aborted, Sanguisugabogg, Crown Magnetar, and of course our friends in Slay Squad. And I wanted to get, again, different opinions, different life experiences and everything like that, because I feel like especially you, John, and you know, you, Mark, have seen the death metal scene or the deathcore scene or just the extreme music scene, you know, rise, fall, grow, evolve, change, all of this other stuff. And I always have talks with friends and colleagues and other musicians about just where the extreme music scene is right now, and it seems to me, and this is just my opinion, right? It seems healthier than ever with the amount of bands that are coming through and the amount of good, solid death metal bands that are pulling their stuff out, and as well as bringing out influences from, you know, the 90s or the 80s when the music started to really ramp up. John, how have you seen the scene change over the past few years, and where do you think it is in 2023?
Yeah, it's like less tech and more organic kind of metal, I guess you'd say. People aren't trying to outblast each other like to get to 320 BPM or whatever. That's, you know, it's kind of like a dick measuring contest. Who can play the fucking fastest? And, you know, and it's like, that doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good to play 300 BPM. And I could, maybe, hey, that's my opinion, whatever. I don't feel like it sounds good when it's played live, you know, like these things. Yes, you can fucking, you know, quantize a fucking kick drum and make it, you know, and compress it and, you know, and make it whatever audible and some kind of recording session. But I don't know. I think all that it's kind of like expired and people are on to just, you know, what sounds good, like bands like Obituary, like that's one of my favorite bands ever, you know.
Yeah.
Not fucking, you know, trying to be technical. It just sounds good. That's what you want with the low end of the guitar. You want to feel it, and something you can mosh to and headbang and all this, and not, you know, bands aren't trying to outsmart the listener anymore, like confuse them. Like even us, like, you know, with our thing, I've kind of held back a little bit with our new music to where I'm not, so I have songs where I have like 25 riffs crammed up. It becomes like a riff salad, you know, and there's no, you know, flow. So now it's like we're trying to go back to a little more of like repeating riffs and you know, and not just, you know, throwing everything on the table. So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of what's going on. This is still more like it's more old school nowadays in 23. That's my take on it. But there's still tech bands out there doing it and stuff. But you know.
Yeah, of course. And like one thing that always strikes me is, especially watching either Dying Fetus music videos or live videos or anything like that, is just and it feels like since, like, you know, I was a 15-year-old, they're always going to be your 14, 15-year-old kids in, you know, in the pit, you know, doing their moshing and headbanging along. Do you feel like in your experience, do you feel like you're seeing more younger kids nowadays at the shows?
Oh yeah,
you are.
Yeah. In recent years, yes, definitely. Yeah, like Cannibal Corpse, the biggest one. They're getting even like huger now. So that's just a sign of more people being exposed to it. And we have, you know, online, Spotify, people can just pick up their phone and check shit out. Like, oh, I like this. Whereas back in the day, you had to, like, you know, go to some fucking record store and, like, you know, attempt to fucking buy some CD, and then sometimes the CD would take home sucks. Like now you can just flip through a bunch of shit and just go, oh, I like this. I don't know. I think that's kind of helping the scene grow is the Spotify and all that. So yeah.
Mark, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but I wanted to ask Drew and Dan, as far as, like, you know, because we were talking about earlier at the very beginning, you know, I believe we're kind of all around the same age and had a very similar experience with music growing up and everything like that. What do you think were your perceptions as, like, let's say like a 18-year-old doing the death metal thing to now you are part of it, you're in it? Do you feel like even from, like, you know, when we were teenagers and getting into our early 20s, it has grown and become this bigger thing than it was even like 10, 15 years ago?
Like, you mean death metal and heavy music getting bigger now?
Correct,
than it was? Like, honestly, yeah. I feel like there's so many, like, newer bands that are, like, getting bigger, or like just touring with older bands that are like continuously still touring, and like even the older bands, like John said, are like getting bigger, like somehow, which is like so badass. Like I saw Suffocation in Toledo at Frankie's, which is like a 200 cap room, and then like see them now. They're playing like, I don't know, like maybe Gramercy Theater in New York City or something. Like it's cool, like that there's like another, like, I guess, rejuvenation in heavy music. Like there's more eyes on it again.
Yeah.
Like it's people are having more fun with it. Because when I like where I grew up, there wasn't really anybody at all into what I was into. Like I had to come to like the city of Toledo. I grew up like a little outside, so like, and it was still just like a tight knit group of people, and it was more so like grindcore and like noise heads rather than like death metal and deathcore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I think like extreme metal is like super healthy right now, and kind of going back to like what like John and Drew were saying, like I think people are getting more into like the extreme shit, especially with like just bands in the scene getting out there a bunch more. I think it's good for all the bands, obviously, and like there's like a really cool cohesion going on now. I think of like the legendary OG bands like still kicking ass, and like kind of like the younger bands getting out there a lot more too. I think there's like such a great mix of unique bands like out right now. I mean, I've definitely like thought in the past that like there were so many bands that sounded super similar, and I think that's like totally not a thing anymore, which is super cool. And yeah, it just gives there's like something for everyone out there if you're like into like heavy music at all, I think. And like I think especially after like 2020 and shit, like everyone just dropped albums and just everyone wanted to go to shows, and like I think that's still like carrying like on now.
Yeah.
And I think people like hopefully some people like won't take that for granted again. And yeah, I think it's super healthy right now.
Yeah, I agree. And just, I guess to John's point as well, right? I mean, if a 15-year-old was to pick up the latest Cannibal Corpse record, right? They're ripping just as hard as they were, 10, 15 years ago and everything like that, which is great because then it's like, well, this is really good. And now I'm going to go back and listen to what they, the albums that put them on the map. That's what happened with me and like Maiden and Priest. When I heard Maiden and Priest for the first time, Angel of Retribution and Brave New World had, come out a couple years behind, right? And I had no idea that there was 20 years or like 15 years in between those albums because I'm 14 years old. What the hell do I know? And I was just like being able to go and like, holy shit, like Brave New World is still one of my favorite albums of all time. And just being able to go back and listen to those, like, I agree 100% on that.
Yeah, it's
What I'm also
all I was gonna
Sorry,
say,
go
all
ahead.
it takes is like just a kid finding like, hearing one little part of some crazy song and you just get sucked into it. So I mean, like there's so much crazy music out there right now. I think it's just like super accessible for anyone who's into that. And yeah, there's just so much of it. It's awesome.
Yeah, Dan, you were or Drew.
I feel like something I've also noticed is everyone is like every band, no matter how like what level they're at, are like talking about each other and like putting on for each other and taking each other out on tour and like communicating with each other, which is so fucking cool to see. It's and like I guess be a part of too, because it's like even stuff like this is really cool that we're all just chatting. Like it's everyone's helping each other just like have a good time and play heavy music. And like the internet is definitely like that's the only like age I know is the internet age of like finding music, I suppose, because like I mean I was starting to find music out in 2006, YouTube and shit, but yeah, like Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music, and Twitter and Instagram, it's like it's crazy, it's cool, very accessible.
Very true.
Yep, can't even keep up with anything anymore. Mark, I'll let you put the bow on this one, my dude.
Well, I think what everybody said is totally true. And yeah, I mean, all of the information age or whatever age we're in right now, like one, you can find music way easier. You don't have to go look for it. I remember like Lou's Records was the place I went to, and actually Travis Ryan from Cattle worked there. And
hell yeah,
like, what should I get, dude? But
right.
But yeah, I mean, you can find music easier. And then too, because if you wanted to start a band, you can put your music out there easier. So there's more bands. It's easier to discover the music. It all just makes this big you know, I feel like this question gets brought up a lot. Like I've been asked this multiple times. How do you feel about the health or the status of heavy music? But like really right now, I do. I feel like it's a crazy time. You know, the Stranger Things with Master of Puppets and like Metallica being on that big scale, that changed a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that was huge. And then more so because people are discovering it and there's more bands. I feel like the extreme style of music or just like death metal vocals, even if it's just a meme or even if it's just like a funny thing to some people, it's not so counterculture anymore. It's not so underground. It's like almost everybody knows, like, oh, you know, you play in a band or it's like a metal band. Is it that like music? It's like that wasn't ever even a question to be asked when I was in high school. You know, you had to show someone, look, this is, you know, death metal. So yeah, I mean it's came a long way, and yeah, the legends are being sicker. I mean, Cannibal, Morbid, Suffo, Fetus, like bands that are being around for 30 years and playing death metal. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, John mentioned Obituary earlier, right? Like
Obituary,
you listen to their
totally.
new record and it's like, holy shit, like this is almost like something right out of time, because it's almost like they haven't missed like any time at all. Like they're still just doing their thing, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's inspiring all around. You know, though that's why we keep doing it. You know, I don't ever want to stop. Cannibal is like the ultimate. Look up to Cannibal. It's like, dude, look at what fucking Cannibal Corpse is doing. Like that is the sickest, and we all can just aspire to do that. There's no more Slayer. There's no more Slayer. You know, every band kind of rises up. Like I always say, like Lamb of God's the new Slayer. You know, like they're taking that spot. You know, and then like bands are gonna slowly kind of retire, and
Yeah.
everybody that sticks around, I mean, we're all in it for the long haul. You know, that's also what makes, I think, that the status of it all even stronger, is because I feel like once you've been doing it for fucking a decade or two or three, like you're not gonna stop. Like you're gonna keep going. So it's strong.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about that is, as well as we're also seeing kind of these. It felt like, especially when I was growing up, right, there were rigid walls that like genres wouldn't pass or wouldn't do anything, right? Like you stuck in your lane, and now those have, you know, through streaming and YouTube and Twitter and all this other stuff, it's like you were saying, it's so easy to find new music. And like, I mean, look at a band like Slay Squad, who's opening this tour right now, right? Just mixing a whole bunch of different stuff, and that's getting other scenes and other people involved and saying like, oh, well, maybe I didn't like this music before, but I heard this stuff in here that I do like, and it only opens it up for more people outside of, you know, our little world or bubble or whatever you want to call it, to find more stuff and bring it in. And now you're seeing people, you know, pop stars wearing death metal t-shirts and like having different, like their logos in different death metal shit and everything like that. I mean, like John,
I'll still call them posers though.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's your prerogative if you want to. I don't give a shit. But like John, I mean, you Dying Fetus is in the pop culture canon too, just based off of having a song in South Park and everything like that, right? You know?
Oh
yeah. That happened. Right.
That happened.
It's so badass.
Right. Metal's in the media. That's helping out. That's helping our cause, man. Exposure. The Kardashians wearing the shirts and all that. You know, it's helping. Everything is playing its part. You know, so
exactly,
yeah, it's benefiting us really. When anybody in the media brings attention to this shit, it's like, okay, all right, brings more people to the table.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So to wrap up, we've kind of touched on this just a little bit, but given that we are previewing the Chaos and Carnage tour that's going to be happening, I wanted to know. So everybody in this little screen right here, except for myself, has been touring their asses off over the last couple of years and like getting out there, especially after a little while when you couldn't do it anymore. To wrap up. And John, I'm going to go with you last, but I want to know the biggest thing that y'all missed about being out on the road and touring, and the one thing that you're like, fuck that shit, I wish I never had to do that again. I'm dreading going on tour because of that. Mark, let's start with you, dude.
I mean, it's easy. What I miss the most is being on stage. I mean, playing shows is so much fun, and it's literally, if there's anything I was born to do, I feel like I was born to do that. Like it's where I feel super at home. And then, dude, touring is hard. I mean, just going out on tour, being at home for like 2 months or 2 years or whatever it was, like I haven't done that in a long, long time. So hitting the road and then being 2 years older and had been chilling, I'd be a liar to say that like touring just isn't a hard thing to do. And I mentioned Europe earlier, and I just keep kind of going back because the last European tour, anybody that's been to Europe in November, December, there's like no sun, dude. I'm from California. Like yeah, dude. So being in Europe in the early winter, waking up at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, because that's what time I wake up on tour, and then the sun goes down 2 hours later, you might not even get any sun. Fuck that.
I feel it, man.
Yeah, but the shows are always worth it. So, and the hangs are usually good. So, you have a good time.
Fuck yeah. Dan, what about you?
And you commiserate with other people. So that's also good.
Yeah. I'm like Mark said, I'm just stoked to play shows, man. That's what I love about it. Just being wild on stage with my friends and connecting with the other guys on tour. It's super fun. I guess there's one thing I'm not excited about is if I hope we don't run into any shitty weather, because I'm the shitty weather driver and it's stressful as fuck sometimes.
Do you mean like you are forced to be behind the wheel when it's shitty weather?
Oh yeah, well, I tell the guy, I'll be like, all right, scoot over. Like, I can't deal with. I'll just have too much anxiety if someone else is driving sometimes.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know, like when I'm not driving in the rain, it's just like I've got the oh shit handle and I've got like one hand on the wheel. It's like, let's go.
Yeah. No, we'll be good though.
Yeah, no. Here's hoping all the best for you. Drew, what about you, man?
I just knocked on wood.
Yeah, we knock on wood everywhere. That's wood, everybody.
Yeah.
Drew, what about you? What's the biggest thing you missed and the thing that you most definitely did not miss?
Dude, I missed playing shows. That's the most. That's it. The most important thing. I miss playing shows and being around my friends and dicking around and, like Dan said, like connecting with other bands.
Yeah.
And also, I will amplify on the shitty weather situation. Definitely. Just the long drives. I drive a lot, so that's like the only dreadful thing. But other than that, just ready to kick it and play shows and party.
That's the biggest. No, it'll be good. Hey, John, last one on this one. What did you miss? And I know you've probably got stories, and we're not going to make you all jaded or anything like that, but I am curious on your thoughts, man.
I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. I miss the shows, miss the income and all that, which that provides.
Yeah.
Of course, going. I didn't miss like people snoring. I didn't miss people's stinky feet. That kind of stuff. That was the great thing. It's like people being drunk. This like blah 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 blah. Sometimes that gets old. Just hearing all that nonsense.
You're gonna love our bass player.
Blah, 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 blah. People start drinking, and then all of a sudden they become important. I didn't miss that part about it all, but the shows. Of course I missed that, man. That's what we do. And for me, being older, I was at the end of my 40s. I'm like, fuck. Like right now, I got to hit this shit. I don't have that much more time to go, right? So that's what really kind of sucked with COVID for me. I lost a couple years where, if I was fucking 22, it may not have been as much of a big deal. But when you get older, you're like, man, I need to be out there practicing my craft and and doing what I do. But yeah, didn't miss the feet or the snoring and all that.
Yeah, I feel like from everything that I've heard and everyone I've talked to, especially with death metal, you're basically resigning your life to a life of BO and farts.
Right, farts and all that stuff. That was the beauty of being away from that. I was living on the beach, during COVID, so I was having a good time, during COVID. Actually, I enjoyed myself a bit, but. I wanted to be out there, but I still had a good time with it, chilling out. But
Yeah, and sometimes that's, you know, taking stock of that and like having that, you know, I've heard a lot of bands, a lot of people say that, you know, like obviously there was a lot of shitty things that happened during that time, but being able to kind of have a forced reset, especially with, you know, your professions.
Reset.
Yeah, your professions where you never really had that. It was just like tour, write, album, tour, write, album,
Right.
being able to kind of take stock, you know, gave people a lot of time to kind of be like reassess, you know?
Right, because you can get burnt out. Sometimes it is good to wait. There's times where I don't want to practice guitar. I put it away for a month. Don't think about it. I don't even want to hear about fucking death metal. So that way I don't get burnt out on it, you know, because, you know, that can really happen. You know, you want it to be fresh, you know, at times. And if you just constantly do anything, you just, I don't know, you know, you lose it at some point. So that the COVID kind of helped to, you know, reset our band a little bit. So in some ways it was beneficial. You know, I was writing a lot of music and stuff. So just like everyone else, I know.
Yeah.
But,
well, I think that's where we're going to wrap it, everybody. This has been an amazing conversation, and I thank you all for being a part of this and sharing your lives and your stories and your ideas and your honesty and everything like that. So, everybody, the Chaos and Carnage Tour kicks off next Friday, April 7th at Fort Worth, Texas, and it's going to run all the way through April 30th in Anaheim, California. You can catch Dying Fetus, Suicide Silence, Born of Osiris, Aborted, Sanguisugabogg, Crown Magnetar, and Slay Squad on it. Go to chaosandcarnage.com to grab your tickets if you haven't done so already. And all four of these motherfuckers to around me are going to tell you, get some tickets right now if you haven't done it already.
Get them.
get your tickets.
Get your tickets, motherfuckers.
Get them.
Come on out, motherfuckers.
They're going to hire Jay and Silent Bob to knock on your door and beat the shit out of you if you don't buy tickets. It's going to happen. All right.
Right.
John, Mark, Drew, Dan, again, thank you so much for your time today. For all of those dudes, I'm John Garcia for KNOTFest, signing off, everybody. Stay heavy. Stay puffed.